Hello, welcome back to the Social Hotelier podcast with me, Sam-Erik. In today's episode, I have invited back Mark Dardan, with whom we spoke about branding in the previous episodes. So, Mark, welcome back again for this exciting episode.
Thank you, Sam. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
One of the ongoing issues is that hotel management companies and brands, there's a discussion which comes first, culture versus strategy, or do they go hand in hand? So in this particular topic, maybe you can mention some brands that are great, or what are the brands that are great, of an example for good brands, and why are they great?
No, absolutely. It's a big discussion point on the importance of culture. And, when I look at my career, when I did really understand the power of culture is when I joined Ritz-Carlton, right? Previously, I'd worked with some great brands like Hyatt, together with Hyatt, which was kind of unwritten culture. And when I joined Ritz-Carlton, it was so explicit, really, and I saw how it really worked. I remember the famous Credo on the Credo card, etc. And initially, when I joined, I felt that was very American, very brainwashing, etc. But then suddenly I got into it, and when it really clicked was when I was asked to come to Atlanta to meet with the corporate team, and I realized that Horst Schulze, at that time the founder, lined up his executive team, and they were all talking about quality, about the Credo card, etc. So I got a little worried because I was afraid that he would ask me any questions, and after that, on the flight back, I said, "Oh, I better take this seriously." And Sunday grew on me, and from maybe a non-believer to a believer, I became a real ambassador, and really lived by that credo. And I saw how powerful it was, even really at line staff level. I saw lineups we used to call the morning meetings lineups, and I saw our gardeners in Bali were lining up, really, and we're talking about quality and credo and purpose. And that's when I thought, wow, this is so powerful. And I was on speaking engagement, etc. And I really experienced how strong the culture was.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have similar experience in a sense when I worked with several brands like yourself, but I think the best experience would be Dusit brand. I originally joined Dusit in Thailand and really got a strong sense about the culture. And I think at that time, the best hotels that Dusit had were the hotels in Thailand because the staff were Thai. The owner very involved with the brand and also ensuring that what we unspoken brand standards were followed, and it was something so much unspoken that you didn't really have to talk about what is Thai culture or what are the social norms or the behavior and how guest was the most important thing for us at the Dusit, and this always came up very strongly. But I noticed one thing that when we tried to export the Dusit abroad, and now that's going back way back. There were some challenges, and I think those are things that takes a little bit time to evolve. That when you're exporting a brand to another country, that how it will take a lot of time to make sure that you're getting the brand as it is known in Thailand to be the same. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I saw that with several other brands. Take Shangri-La, for example, super successful, obviously in Asia, etc. Not as successful, really, when you look at Paris or maybe London, maybe another good brand, the Indian brands, right, which have truly luxury hotels in India, had also issues exporting on. I think one thing that we discussed is also it starts at the top. Culture starts at the top, and if you don't have leaders that are truly lived up and grew up with the brand, uh, sometimes it doesn't go through because they bring back some of their other cultures that they gained from maybe working for other groups, etc. So I think that could be one of the issues. But when back to Ritz-Carlton, really globally, it was there now, much diluted, obviously, because obviously Marriott took over. They have over 100 hotels. It becomes more and more difficult to stick to that original brand DNA.
Yeah. How did you find you were involved with the Armani brand? What is your experience with that, considering that there's one man who has, and he is Mr. Armani himself?
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting because it was really creating a brand and a culture of a hospitality culture for Armani. So first is to understand really the Armani DNA, understand the man. Obviously, in this case, it was Mr. Armani himself. What are his values? What is his purpose, etc. How does he work? And exactly what you did with Dusit, we did the same thing with him, so we tried to understand what he expected. And, one of the points was to be approachable. And I think I told a story in one of our podcasts, that he wanted to be his brand to be approachable and not out of reach, so that's how we somehow translated in the hospitality culture that we created. And up to today, I think they have kept it pretty much alive and still very, very successful.
Yeah. Interestingly, I work for a brand called Playboy Resorts, and we didn't have, this was involved with a magazine, a lifestyle magazine, and when I really think back, it wasn't. I really couldn't think about what was signifying Playboy as a hospitality brand. Yeah, it was a brand which had very nice cocktail waitresses in fancy uniforms and in their Playboy club. But overall, everyone who worked there, they came from different backgrounds, whether it was Hilton or Hyatt or Holiday Inn. In fact, I only learned about Hyatt when I worked for Playboy, and and thanks to that I worked for Playboy, I realized how great brand that Hyatt is because our food and beverage director was with Hyatt, and he was a very creative F&B guy. So I thought, oh, that Hyatt is a great brand. So I think I'm going to say bye to Playboy as soon as I have a chance to join Hyatt, and which I did, and I'm so glad that I became part of that management training program with Hyatt eventually, and everything was very. You have to be very creative all the time, and I enjoy that part.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember Hyatt's unwritten culture really, because we didn't have any Credo cards, etc. But dealing with our colleagues, we felt there was something in common. I don't know about you, but like that's what I felt. So it was especially in Asia, we were very entrepreneurial. I think that's one thing. So and really driving quality, looking at food and beverage. I would call it also a little bit play hard and work hard. So we had a lot of fun, but we worked very hard also. Very approachable, and I still remember the big employee or colleague parties we did, and how fun it was, etc. So that was kind of an unwritten culture, but an important culture, right? So
Yeah.
the other extreme is obviously the Ritz-Carlton. I'm not too sure what really works, but one thing I want to say is that a culture is created from within, and I'm just in a project at the moment where we are creating a hospitality company. And we obviously started with the culture. I said, look, we can't wait. I say, well, we have a branding agency. The branding agency is not who creates the culture. It's us, a small team, 10, 12 people, like Horst Schulze started, or Isidore Sharp with Four Seasons, etc. We are the guardians of the culture, So we spent so far 2 workshops together, brainstorming on, we don't want to copy. Obviously, we looked at what other people did, etc. You cannot copy a culture. You have to create from within and create your own purpose.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. I think that's super important that it really comes from within. Now, of course, the design of the Credo card or the posters on the wall, etc., can be done by a branding agency and the employee promise and all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, you have to be the creator and you have to be the guardian of the culture, because you're going to need to walk it every day, you know. So on that, that's very important, because if you promise something to colleagues nowadays, even more than during our time, you need to deliver, because they will keep you accountable for what you're saying and promising, you know. So I don't know what your experiences was with, the changing demographics, of course, of our colleagues, but the way they look at really leadership nowadays.
Absolutely. This is I mean, the time when I started my career, and I was all very much, I didn't really, I was ambitious to advance in my career, and I wouldn't dream about saying, no, I'm not going to work for this company anymore unless it was something really crucial. But I found out today, you really have to earn the respect of the people that and those colleagues, and you have to create a like a relaxed, friendly atmosphere in the workplace with the generation that are the young hoteliers, and they are not willing to put up with any old ways of thinking, the old school of I'm the boss kind of thing. They will say, okay, good for you, I'm leaving. You have to be very careful, and particularly in the time now where the hotels are short-staffed. A perfect example now in the Nordic, and also there's the ski season coming up, and hotels that are relying on during the ski season having the seasonal staff. There are some big challenges for those hotels, not necessarily branded. Many of them are family owned, or they are of course branded, that they are and these seasonal staff talk between each other, which is a fun place to work. Which one is they're really could care less who I am, and they just use me for that 3 months, and then they kick me out, and then they are very nice to me when they need me. So it goes for all the way from the big brands to the seasonal hotels who has to rely, and you have to be able to convince them, those seasonal staff, that you care for them, and that there's an opportunity they should pick up on.
Yeah. I think the whole interview process has changed also, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, we used to interview staff, right? So we ask all these questions. Now, my experience is that they're asking us questions, right? You know, so what are you going to do for me? So you try to hire somebody, and then what are you going to do for me? So what do you mean? I'm going to give you a job. Obviously, I'll give you a career, clearly. But the real interview is, so what is the next step? You know, and I think that's great, you know, so good. I mean, sometimes it's too fast, you know, so they say, okay, who do you want to be? Oh, I want to take your job in 2 years.
Yeah.
I said, I might take a few years. But so that's that. And then also ESG, you know, what is your commitment? They ask you, what do you do for society? You know, what do you do? Do you recycle? Do you do? And then you give them a big spiel of, yes, that's what we're doing, ESG, very important. Then they start working with you and realize you don't care at all. You know, it's just greenwashing.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the next thing. They come to you and say, "You lied to me. I'm leaving. Goodbye. Thank you."
Yeah.
So that's what it is. You know. So, but I think it's being accountable, and I think it's a good thing. You know. So I don't say that in the past we were not accountable, but we were so directive. We say, "Okay, you come, join us. You do clean rooms, etc." You know, so this has changed into good. You know, I'm really happy about these changes, and we have to change instead of just complaining about the young generation. They don't want to work. They're not like us, etc. Yeah, they're different. It's us to change. Otherwise, we need to check out, right? So, and I think the challenge is very good.
Yeah, and also let's face it, there's a new generation of customers also that, and they will be served by these. Just as a side note, I remember my first job in the hotel, very first job in the hotel, and the interview and my passion at that time was I enjoyed playing guitar, and so the general manager then sat me down in his office and asked me, "You have very long hair. We don't like people with long hair, so I think, are you willing to cut your hair if we hire you?" He said, "Yeah, at least a little bit." Okay. And then, how many languages do you speak? Well, I speak so and so. And then he tried to probe me in Swedish, which I answered fluently, and English I answered fluently. So he was satisfied. And then he looked around himself. There was a guitar in the corner. I said, "Do you play guitar?" Yeah, I can play a little bit. So the whole thing, how I got the job was that besides that, I committed to him that I'm going to cut a little bit my long hair, also that I played him a song. So that was sort of my interview process. And I still remember that as one of my best interviews I ever had.
Yeah, that reminds me also the interview process we had with Patina when we started. Really, one of the key questions is passion, right? Do you have a passion for something? Do you have a hobby? What's your hobby? And if somebody said I don't have a hobby, then really that was a no-go question. But for me, if somebody has a hobby and is passionate about something, then they can be passionate about their job, right? So that's the kind of character you're looking for in the hospitality business. So that was that. But to the original title of our discussion, really, strategy, culture.
Yeah.
Do they go in hand in hand? I believe they do go hand in hand, and they need to be aligned, right? So you can't have a strategy that is not aligned with the culture. You can't have culture that is not aligned with strategy. So you obviously, in today's world, you can't just operate a business without a strategy, right? So, but alignment and constantly reviewing the alignment and adjusting also is obviously hugely important. But staying also, including culture pretty much in every decision making process within the organization at all levels, right? So for example, I don't know, if we decide about a colleague, one of the key pillars that we talked about our new company is generosity. Are we generous? We want to be generous to our colleagues. We want to be generous to our clients also. So if we have that philosophy, I don't know, not being able to provide adequate benefits to our colleagues is probably not a good sign of generosity. It's not only money. Money is only one bit, and we all know that people don't leave normally for money, except maybe line employees that really need it. It's mostly the culture or bad boss, etc., etc. So if you don't include your culture in every business decision on your purpose, that's when you're not aligned, So,
yeah.
And I think when we talk about other companies outside of the hospitality business, I'm sure you have a couple of examples, but the one I love is always Apple. We all love Apple. And I always love going into an Apple store because when I meet these colleagues, they are fanatics about Apple. They love it. And their purpose is not to I feel that they have a purpose, and the purpose is not to do an 8-hour job. They want to really, engage you and make you as engaged with Apple as they are, right? You can really feel it, in my opinion, right? And they don't try to sell you too much stuff. They really want to please you, and I think they have that higher purpose. And I don't know what their slogan is, but I'm sure they have a slogan, they have a purpose, etc. An interview process to get people, really the same kind of people, into the organization. And I have gone, like you, in many Apple stores. I was just recently in Miami. I went recently here in Dubai, even though there was a long line of people who wanted to buy the new Apple device, right? So, but that's, I think, for me, that's a great example of a company that has a purpose and shows it through their colleagues.
Yeah, another brand within the hotel, Virgin brand is a good example also. Branson, who has, it's the personality, and they extended into they covered lots of industries and also into the hotels. But it also shows that there's something, they are very innovate. The innovation is what I really like about, and it's also like comes around about the personality of Branson.
Yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I had the pleasure to meet him at least once, so, but, when I looked at a couple of his videos on LinkedIn, I just recently saw it when he was welcoming the CEO of, I think it was the Virgin cruise ships, and he brought two glasses of champagne and spilled them all over him, right? So obviously, mostly on purpose, I would think,
Yeah,
but that showed the fun of joining that organization, the
yes,
fact that they were level, not level, but you see there was a relationship there, and he was also making fun of himself being clumsy, right? So not being able to serve two glasses of champagne, the kind of the messages that he sends, right? So you need to
yeah,
have fun, not that you didn't need to spill champagne on your guests, right? That's probably not the message.
no,
But if you ask me, would you like to work for him? I would say yes, right? That I was kind of hoping once somebody would contact me, because I would have said yes. I would. Number one, I would have loved interviewing with him, because
yes,
he would have asked you some really interesting questions.
yeah,
But that's a very good example. I agree with you.
yeah. But then when we look at the hotels where visiting certain hotels, you walk in and you really feel you have arrived at their, and there's a brand, there's a culture, and there's a brand that stands behind their promise. Like Aman hotels, for example. You go to any Aman hotels, it's a fantastic feeling when you go there. I mean, I visited few. I haven't stayed at any, but I have visited few, and I really have to say that was a eye-opening to see that how someone has tastefully designed and also developed a culture that is, whether it's from Bali to Morocco. You always feel that you have arrived at the Amman hotel.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, with Amman, it's also architecturally, they have been able to keep really that feel of space, privacy, serenity. Any Amman you walk to, you have that feeling, right? But on top of it, the staff, right, the colleagues, they
Yeah,
make the difference, and you can
sure.
really feel that they deeply care for you. And even the types of leaders they have, they're not very good at reading P&Ls, but they're certainly good at looking after guests, right?
Yeah,
So I don't know if this has changed now with obviously the new leadership and so on. It'll be interesting to see also, because they're just launching a second brand, which is a more approachable brand, to see if there's any differences in the way they would service. I would think there must be a difference, right? But
sure.
yeah, that's a very good example. I
Yeah,
agree with you.
yeah. How about then we're looking at what is happening with the large um, hotel management companies are buying entire brands, and there's now developing a whether the culture comes along with that, or is it just simply a strategic decision. Accor has been buying up brands left, right, and center, and some other companies also. What is your thought about? Is that do you think that is a long living, or is this a smart thing to do, or if they're just looking at buying the brand and then try to get the most out of it, getting into the all inclusives and etc.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, it's obviously a core. It's good to diversify, but I think they have about 45 brands by now. So really differentiating the brands and keeping the cultures, obviously serene and clean, will be extremely difficult. They have
Yeah,
done one good thing, is that they kept the founders on board, right? So 25 hours, Mama Shelter, etc., which is a good move. But really, unfortunately, when you are a global brand of over 5,000 hotels, eventually there'll be dilution. And it's a pity, but this is big business, right? So that's why the larger groups, not really able to keep it. When you take 25 hours in Dubai, for example, for me it's a little bit of a deviation from the original brand because it's 400 rooms, it's big, has very traditional restaurants in there. The lobby doesn't have the same vibe that it has in the other hotels, and so and so. Again, why? Because they don't own the assets. Also, if you own the asset, you control everything because it's your decision. It's a business decision to do whatever you want to do. If you obviously have a management contract, you get pushed into compromises to say, okay, our brand standards or guidelines is 200 rooms. Yeah, okay, you got the opportunity to do 400 rooms. Who is walking away from that? You're not going to walk away from a business decision. On the deal maker, obviously has his commission in line, so he definitely will push for the 400 rooms, right? So then you have deviation. When you look at brands that have been able to keep the DNA, like Peninsula is a good example, right? Because they own their hotels, or they at least have 50% ownership in most of their hotels. When you look at every peninsula, but they have 10, 12 hotels in the world now, right? So just recently opened London. I'm going to see it in November, so look forward to it. To see if it's still very much in line with their original philosophy, which I think it is.
Yeah. I also like another example of a brand that I really like is Langham. And Langham is very much part of the Hong Kong-based real estate company, and they own most of their assets. And they have able to retain pretty good standard overall. And you have the leadership now who are been long over 25 years with the company, and so they'll continue on the path. So I have great respect for like the Langham brand, that they are considering they originally had come using a name of a hotel in London, but now they're doing some excellent work and also carry out their various brand standards. But they don't grow fast, but it's kind of a slow and steady growth, similar to the companies like Peninsula, which I really enjoy to see what they are doing next.
Yeah, no, I agree. But they do own quite a few of their hotels also, right? So they have really control. And nowadays, like back to the management contracts, right? Also, when you start developing like a brand, whatever it is, you need to control the first stage of development. And I remember, for example, when the various brands were launched. Let's say also, for example, W is a good example, right? W, very, very ahead of its time, incredible success, etc. But really over the years got diluted to the extent that Marriott, I believe, has reassessed the brand and relaunched a couple of W's. They say they're on standard, on the new standard, right? So, or for example, Edition, that's another good example. When they launched Edition, they owned the first four hotels in the US, right? So they established the brand and eventually then sold the assets, but kept obviously the brand and expanded the brand, right? So the early stages are very, very crucial. That's why when I was in Asia and we did Patina, our first hotel was owned, and it was difficult to expand before we had to open the first hotel, because a lot of people said, look, it's great, we know that you can operate a good hotel, we have a lot of respect for the Kui family, it's going to be good quality, but come back when your hotel is open, and then we can really we can stay there and feel it, and then also obviously make it successful, right? So controlling the hotels in the first stages, hugely important. And it depends on what your ambitions are. If you want to control continuously, then you have to own all your hotels.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think this is an interesting discussion, and I always look forward to see what is the next step. Whether the big companies are continue to get bigger, and how they're going to manage, and what is the customer going to say when they have been used to staying in a branded hotel that they knew from before, and there was a culture. But now something has happened, and there's not the same feeling. I mean, the customers will vote with the wallet, as they call it. And but I have a passion for those small brands. I must say, I think they are you kind of feel it in your fingertips when you walk into the hotel that they are something special.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember once in Hong Kong at one of the conferences, I did a short, some sort of TED call on big or small, who's going to win, right? So my point was big is big. When you look at Marriott, you look at Hilton, Accor, ISG, that's the big four guys, they are becoming distribution companies, so they're
Yeah.
selling you free things, yeah, their distribution system, their loyalty program, and their brands, right? Which is
Yep.
okay. And actually, in some areas, they don't even want to manage anymore because it's too costly, etc. And who does the best? I mean, I think Marriott and Hilton are really doing extremely well at that. IG, also Accor, still has a lot of operating management. They've taken the decision to do more of a hybrid, right? So between management and things. But then you look at the small players, and what I did during that talk, I compared to say 20 years ago, who were the top 20 hotels in the world, and today, who are the top 20 hotels in the world? The top whatever. And then you suddenly realize, oh, it's not the Four Seasons, it's not the Ritz Carlton, it's many many different hotels that are maybe even unknown, right? But they truly, truly are special, right? So
Yep.
a friend of mine is running or is a partner in Nihi Beach in Sumba.
Wow. Yeah,
Uh,
that's a nice
yeah,
hotel.
yeah. And that was a friend of mine actually in Bali. Actually, you might even have known them, Petra, and then I now forgot his first name. But anyway, they started this resort, which was very very basic, and eventually my friend took it over with obviously a big investor, and they really kept the culture and the idea of number one, the location is just fantastic, and if you're a surfer, you love it. But what they have really ensured to do is that they kept the resort ingrained in the culture, the local culture, So you get experiences that you cannot pay for. You can only get there, So you have
Yeah.
wild horses going in front. You can get involved with the local community. You can go and, I don't know, collect some rice or this, or go on. Be part of a ceremony. Like I'm sure in Bali, you went to a couple of these wonderful ceremonies, Balinese ceremonies, which really you'll never forget, right? And the accommodation is fairly simple, but it is, I wouldn't call it luxurious the way you think of luxurious, marble and gold, etc. But it's such an incredible experience that at one stage it was rated number one hotel in the world.
Yeah. I mean, Zumba is on a lot of people's lips now, primarily because of in the string of islands, where Zumba is not on a volcanic island, for instance. So you have all beautiful white sand beaches, and then you don't have to fly to Jakarta to get to Zumba. You just fly directly to Bali because Bali has a
Yeah,
better connection. A 1 hour flight from Bali, you are in Zumba, and of course there are the celebrities have found Zumba already a long time ago, so they stay at a place like Nihi, and when they stay and they talk about it in their glossy lifestyle magazines, people catch on to it, and Zumba is
yeah,
on its way up now in development. So I just hope that they keep true to what the running horses is nice, the sand is nice, but they have to also make sure that they keep the culture and everything that Zumba became famous for, that it's retained, and that will truly be a great destination.
yeah. Or when you look at Europe, for example, the most famous hotels, a lot of the famous hotels are independent hotels, right?
Yes.
I think it's about 70% that's still independent in Europe, right? And talking about Switzerland, where I spent the last 4 years, of my life, it was great to rediscover these wonderful hotels, that have such a history, and They have family business from generation to generation. Take the Borolac, or whatever, the Bad Ragaz, and these are incredible hotels that have been running for years and years, and they don't really need to be part of a Marriott chain or part of an Accor chain, etc. It would actually diminish probably their value if they would be associated with any major American brand, right? So, and they have their own culture, right? So you go and you get really outstanding service in those hotels, and again, great memories.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have. I feel the same about those well-known family-run Swiss hotels. I mean, they are so unique, and it's like a precious jewelry that has been kept for generations, and they yes, they will live with the time, of course, because generations will look for certain things. But at the end of the day, the location where the hotel is, the architecture, the surroundings, and also the service culture is second to none, which you cannot start with a new brand suddenly. It's something that has evolved, and that's exactly to the point that you have made, that culture evolves over time. You cannot really press the button and it will happen overnight.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where the name patina came. Obviously, the patina that develops over over years and time, that you cherish it, you look after it, it develops this beautiful patina. That was actually the whole idea between patina, because again, the Queens love architecture, and they have a very, very long term vision in whatever they do, right? So the name was actually perfect. I didn't need 10 naming agencies, to get to that name. And I think it's a wonderful name. And I'm glad
Yeah,
that
yeah.
the brand has finally taken off.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. There has been a great discussion. So I think the conclusion is that they have to go hand in hand. The the strategy and culture has to go hand in hand. One cannot survive without another, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. They need to be constantly aligned. And again, every decision making needs to be driven by both, by
Yeah,
strategy, but by culture also, so and every time you go against the culture, you're going to put a question mark in some people's mind.
yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you, Mark. It has been a great discussion. So we have a list of topics we have to cover here in the next few months. So I'm looking forward to bring you back to the show, and we continue from where we originally started, about 2 episodes ago. So thanks again, Mark.
No, perfect. Thank you, Sam. All the very best, huh?
Likewise, thank you.